The views and opinions expressed by the Loft Party Podcast panel participants and guests do not necessarily reflect those of the Good Times with Good People company, the host, or its sponsors.
It's not getting in.
Welcome everybody out there in podcast land. The Good Times with Good People company proudly presents the Loft Party Podcast, where it is always about good times, good people, and good talk. Now that you've received your invitation, the best way to let us know that you're in attendance is to download the party or become official by joining us on Facebook, subscribing on YouTube, iTunes Podcasts, or Google Play Podcasts. Good. Thanks for joining us. Grab a cocktail, light a cigar, or whatever you like to smoke. Share us with your friends, and make yourself at home. I'm your host and moderator, Rio, and let's introduce today's panel.
Hey out there in podcast land, I'm your host, Rio, and welcome to the Loft Party Podcast, episode 67, White House Down. With all the scandals, do we think that Trump will last all 4 years? But before we get started, let's introduce today's panel. So, I've got my returning champion. He is Chris O'Connor. He's the owner of Liquid Night Entertainment and Investments, as well as having interest in Rieger Whiskey and Office Works. We've got Ben Roberts, our bartender extraordinaire here at the Pendergast Club, where we record our podcast. Sitting in after quite a long hiatus, Sean Simmons. He is a corporate trainer for Taylor Farms, our resident fruit and veggies man. And we have a member of the audience that may or may not chime in, but I won't embarrass him by putting him on blast. But we welcome him into the studio today. And before we get into important things, let's get into important things. So, what?
And I'm here.
Oh, you know what? You know what? I was going through it so fast.
No, that's okay.
No.
Because you're so
And the anonymous female, because she doesn't want you to know her name. So,
But you better damn well know I'm here.
and that is the point. Like I said, before we get into important things, let's get into important things. And what are we drinking? And since Ben is here, we are drinking today.
We are drinking the best classic cocktail on the planet, the Negroni. I made mine with Rieger Gin, Carpano Antica Red Vermouth, and Campari, served chilled neat with an orange peel. It is the most balanced cocktail ever.
All right.
It's my desert island cocktail.
And it's delicious out there in podcast land.
Okay.
Please.
Also, we should mention the delightful Chicagoan drink we're about to imbibe on. Malort. Malort is...
Explain Malort.
Malort. I'll have another. It's a liqueur that they base out of Chicago, and it's kind of a joke shot. It's not exactly known for its absolutely delicious flavor. I've never had it, nor is anybody else at the table. My brother goes to Chicago from time to time, and you're from Chicago.
Yeah.
You're aware of it too.
Yeah.
And people...
Although I've never actually had a shot of it.
So.
Yeah.
Well,
I've been there, never
shall we do it now?
Let's do it.
get the reaction?
Why not?
Malort!
Malort.
I'll have another. Oh boy.
It's as bad as they say.
Oh my
That
god.
is absolutely as bad
God.
as they say.
Yep, that's not
Oh,
great.
that's disgusting.
Oh god.
So
That tastes like the bitters.
It's like a
it tastes like
tire.
that
That is awful.
Oh
Okay,
man.
so-
Household cleaners.
Okay, so here's the takeaway out there in podcast land.
Oh, that's what you ask somebody you give somebody when you don't like them.
Yeah.
This is how we lose sponsors. It's
Yeah.
delicious.
Yeah,
It
so
was really good.
That's what like that commercials back in. This tastes good. We gotta try it.
yeah, pretty much.
Oh, and podcast people, if you want, go on the YouTubes and just YouTube Malort, and there's I'm putting air quotes on this, an advertisement video for Malort.
Okay.
And it's hilarious.
Okay.
This taste is not getting out of my mouth.
All right.
Oh,
Yeah,
and
it's
also,
gonna take a time.
apparently a Malort in an old style in a can is called a Chicago handshake.
Okay. Now that I had never heard of.
That really does taste like ass.
Yeah, so,
Oh my god.
Gotta try it.
all right. So, like I was about to say,
And
here's
all
the
I did
take.
was dip my, sorry,
Yeah.
all I did was dip my pinky in it.
I
The
know.
cigar's not killing.
I know. Okay, here's the takeaway from this Malort debacle. Remember, don't drink Malort. Do drink the Negroni. The Negroni's delicious. I'm going to have to drink quite a bit of it to get this Malort taste out of my mouth.
One
my
sponsor
God.
down.
I don't know if I would want them to be a sponsor.
Wow. So, the other thing that we need to, the other important thing we need to talk about is what are we smoking? And today we are smoking an OLIVA Series V Melanio Robusto. This blend is it's a Sumatran seed wrapper grown in Ecuador and paired with a Nicaraguan tobacco. It's a pretty extraordinary blend of smokes. It's silky, it's sweet at times, has some toast and cedar taste in it. And it's actually right now, I think it's top 25. I'm trying to remember what number it is of Cigar Aficionado's cigars.
As you know,
It's been
it's my
years,
personal
yeah.
favorite.
So it's an incredible smoke. So if I can recap very quickly, we are drinking a Negroni. We will not ever be drinking Malort again. And do try an Oliva Series V Melanio Robusto.
So I got a new tagline from Mueller.
Yes.
Mueller, what you drink when you hate yourself.
Yes.
That is just wrong.
When there is nothing else on
Look,
that.
Sean was speechless for a while.
Yeah. That was. I wish you had tasto vision or listen out there. This is really.
I'm glad they don't. They really
this is-
turn off the podcast.
Oh my god. Okay, so on to something serious. This week's RIP. The lead singer of Linkin Park, Chester Bennington, he committed suicide Thursday at age 41. This one hit me for a few reasons. One, I really do like Linkin Park. Two, anytime anybody young passes away, I'm, kind of like, wow, and in this case, somebody who commits suicide, I'm really like, and especially when you know that they were rich and famous and had fans, so you wonder
Money
what
doesn't buy happiness.
so you wonder what
That's in my world.
you wonder what the problems were because
It was on Chris Cornell's birthday.
Yeah, it was Chris Cornell's 53rd birthday.
So this is the fucked
They were
up thing
close.
about it.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to get us kicked off of any or put that out, but it's bizarre to me that these things go in cycles like this. That all of a sudden you have this rash of 90s grunge stars killing themselves, and doing all this. I'm like, really? This is the thing? It just seems weird. It always seems weird to me, and I never understand it. And I do think it's sad, but I also just find it bizarre. I'm like, I don't know what you're mad about. Like, you have a pretty good gig going.
Well, didn't the toxicology come back on Chris Cornell that he just OD'd on some ambient and some
So
other stuff?
he took twice the normal
Right.
amount that he normally does,
Right.
and so that can screw you up, and I get that. This just seems like a weird, like, oh, I'm gonna copycat this whole thing, and
So
Go
the
down
guy from Linkin Park hung himself, and then it was on Chris Cornell's 53rd birthday. That morning, Linkin Park actually dropped a new music video that very morning too. Now, if you know his background, he was actually molested as a child, like repeatedly.
no, I never knew that.
Yeah, and his dad was actually a detective on sex abuse cases. So he had actually been from the age of, I think it was like
So who
7.
molested him?
Yeah, so from like the age of 7 all the way through. And the thing was, he never wanted to discuss
His dad
it.
did it?
No, his dad didn't do
okay.
it.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, no, his dad didn't do it. It was a friend, but his dad never caught on to what was going on
How stupid
because
is his dad?
because he didn't
don't know.
he didn't know because the kid as
He's
a
a
child.
cop who's trained to study sex abuse
Right.
cases.
But his
Yes and no.
the problem was it was one of Chester's dad's friends or something like that, right? And it was one of those things where he didn't want to say anything because in an interview he gave out, he was talking about how he didn't want people to think he was gay or that he did this or did that. And that happens a lot with sex abuse victims where they internalize that they did something wrong or bad.
But
Well,
they
it's
didn't
even
want to
worse
come
for
forward.
men.
Even
I mean,
with
it's
the-
horrible for women, but it's
And
even
also-
worse for men.
They're also
with
talking
the
about child
internalization, they always still act out in some way.
Right.
That if you were trained to spot some of the signs, you would have thought you would. I mean, if this is your job,
And he did.
and this is your kid
Yeah.
even more,
And Chester
I
did.
thought you picked it up.
All throughout school, he was kind of like one of those kids who just had issues, was kicking around back and forth. It wasn't until high school when he found music, where he found an outlet, where he found a creative thing for that. You know what I mean? So,
I in no way would blame a parent for this. No parent wants their kid to
Absolutely.
abuse unless you're a complete asshole and you're the
Absolutely.
abuser. But you would think in this case, clearly the dad did not want his kid abused.
right.
It's hard for me to believe they didn't recognize some signs along the way, or you
Right.
just don't want to think it's ever happening to your kid.
And I think that's what it
that's
is.
what
I think that's what it is. I think what it is,
That's
as a parent,
incredibly sad.
as a parent, you don't want to think that that's happening to your child. He mentally, he's probably sitting there saying it's childhood angst. Kids acting out,
But
right?
don't you think after another 20 plus years of living, that
A good
you
life?
have found a way to deal with it?
Not
at some point?
always.
Just
Yeah.
throwing it out for
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah, but
I
not
don't know.
I don't
How
know
do you ever get over it? Do you ever really get over
Well,
it?
I
or
don't
do
think you
not?
can if you never admit to it. The first thing
So
you
maybe
have
he
to
just
do,
denied it
right?
internally.
You don't get actual help.
Right.
You may have told somebody, but that kind of thing is, you have to really be trained
Yeah.
to help
Sure.
people get through that.
I mean, I would never minimize these
Yeah.
things. I've never been through
But
it. I don't know.
if you
oh
never
my God.
say this happened to me, there's no way you would have ever been able to get past it.
So I had this weird conversation earlier today, which is actually so it's strange. So it's a common thing in divorces to accuse somebody else of pedophilia or child molestation or anything like that. And I had this conversation today with, we were up saying, so her stepmom sent an email to her today saying, I think it's weird that I took Noelle swimming, which we did. We went next door to the library lofts and went swimming. And she said, I find that very uncomfortable and I don't know what they were doing.
That's
And,
her issue.
No.
You
No, here's my point. What I am saying is that you can't backtrack from that. That's a bell you can't unring. When somebody
No,
says
it's not,
that
and
you
she
are-
will owe you an
when
apology
somebody
at some
says
point.
you're a racist, a child molester, you're something like that, you can't unring that bell because people will always believe it no matter what.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and
This-
it's frustrating to me to think that just because she's not your biological child, that you would have no feelings for her. As far as
Well, no, I
a
mean,
father-daughter type
I
of
literally
relationship.
filed a cease and desist order with the court today to go, don't ever say that again because you know it's not true. And if you ever say that again, like I can't get my name back.
Right.
If
Right.
you put that out there, people will always believe it in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And this never ever happened. This is a public gym with cameras everywhere.
Yeah, I mean,
and
and
she was
that-
swimming and I was in the hot tub because I have a terrible back. And that was about it. And she wanted to
Yeah.
go swimming because this is summer.
Well, and I guess that's what I mean. Like, what is wrong with you, woman, that you would immediately go to that place?
They wanted to build a case to try to refile for child support.
And really, that's just it. It's not necessarily anything you did. It's she's got a dark side where that's where she goes.
Yep.
And that's to me
And it's
automatically sits there and now
unfortunate.
says, should that person have any claim on that child? Because what demonic ideas are you going to put in that kid's head?
And
Well,
these people are dirtbags.
And
I
it's
mean, how would you
unfortunate
You're a bad
because
example.
the people that actually are molested It's the same
minimally
thing as
Linda.
it's the same thing as saying I was raped when I wasn't.
So the worst thing that happens is you actually delegitimize the people who are true victims,
Right.
and it's horrible, and it makes it harder for them to prove their case, and that's the worst thing that can ever come out of
And
it.
that's
Yeah.
the quickest way to destroy a man, is accuse him of sexual
It's the
assault.
quickest way to destroy anyone. You know, I mean, if you slander somebody's character, to Chris's point, it doesn't matter how many people know you. It always will become a defense.
It is a bill that cannot be
that
unwrung.
really
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
have, like, you know, it just, you can never come back
The only
from
thing is
it.
doing what you did, which is automatically going on the attack of trying to reclaim and do it in a sense that defends your own
I
character.
just said I'm going to sue you for defamation.
Exactly, and that's the only thing you do is prove that they're the liar.
But
to
even
do what
still,
you can. Well,
just
you
the
can't get
fact-
100% of it back.
Just the fact that they're
Yeah,
talking.
you can't get 100% of it back.
You never can.
I'm sorry that happened, man.
It's insane. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
And it strangely, it caused
Yeah.
a huge rift in our relationships. I'm like, I don't want any part of this.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and it
it's
does make
bad.
it hard for you and whoever you're with, because then there's a whole side of that family that you will never have any contact with.
Well, I don't mind not
You
having
know.
contact with them. But, I mean,
Yes,
no, I,
in this case,
I know what you
maybe
mean.
so,
I
but
know what
yeah,
you
I mean, it just makes, and then she's stuck in the middle,
and
you know?
it's bad for
She
her.
being
And even
the
more,
daughter.
like, I don't know. It's like when somebody goes, "You're a racist." And I go, "No, you're not." I'm like, "How do you defend yourself?" Yes, I have no idea. You're a pedophile. No, I'm not.
No, because the
People
more you
always
deny it,
believe
the more
you
they
know?
get, oh, well, you're denying
Yeah.
it way
There's a
too. I
certain
mean,
amount
there's
of people that
always,
will always believe it. It doesn't
It's a
matter
vicious,
whatever
vicious circle.
it is. So anyway,
That's
side story.
unfortunate.
But that was a weird.
Yeah.
Got off on a weird
Yeah.
tangent, but.
No,
Kinda
I
interesting.
I
think
was
that's
really-
valuable to talk about because it's obviously a common problem.
It happens all the time. It's very common in divorce cases, too, which I had no idea about.
Oh, yeah.
I've never been part of
oh,
one
and
of these
it's
things.
unfortunate that it's usually the mother trying to get back at the father.
Yeah.
Generally, and that's just,
Yeah, probably not
I
a lot of
just
cases
don't
of that
understand
universe.
that kind of thinking.
It's used as a weapon.
Yeah,
It
that's
is
the
used
thing.
as a
It
weapon.
is.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
The past 2 weeks, there have been 2 women accused of having sex, usually teachers, with some of their male students.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they do not face, culturally speaking, the same repercussions that a man
does,
has. I mean, they can walk around.
Socially, yes.
I would high five
Socially, yes.
I'll say,
everybody
I'll say
I knew if I
culturally
was
because
around my
most of the
teacher.
time you see a teacher that had sex with one of their 17-year-old students.
Yeah.
Well,
Man, where
yeah.
was that teacher when I was in high school?
Yeah.
That is a
I'd have to see the
I'm
picture
gonna-
of the teacher first.
But that is a male perspective, because
Yeah.
most women, when they see that, they're like, what the hell is wrong,
Wrong
with
with
that
the teacher,
woman? And
exactly.
why would you ever,
Yeah.
like, I can't even imagine wanting to have any type of relationship.
I would say this. Think about a 23 or 24-year-old girl coming out of college, and these are 17 and 18-year-old boys, in some cases 16, 17, 18, whatever the case is. And I can see how it could happen. I mean, it doesn't matter. And
No,
I swear
I'm
to
like-
God, I had the best looking English teacher. I would have done anything to
Okay,
see her.
but
And I would not have been, ashamed by it or mortified or somehow I had a bad thing. I'd be like,
there's a little
"Sweet, I
bit of
am
a difference
killing it."
in,
I think it's
4
different for
years,
guys
5
and girls.
years
I
than
think it's
it
very
is-
different for guys and girls. I think just the act of sex is different for guys and girls. It's one thing to be, not for lack of a better term, entered into and all the emotion and all that kind of shit, than to be a guy. You just goes, fuck it. I mean, like, guys are pretty callous about it, generally speaking. I think women think it's pretty emotional, especially if it's your first time and you're young and all that other kind of stuff.
So this is very actually apt because my wife works as a school psychologist for a school district here in Kansas City, and she referred a young lady to get a job working in one of the schools. You have to take a psych eval before you get an interview. You have to pass that psych eval before you get that interview and get it. And it's like an 80% pass, right? My wife was looking over this young lady's shoulder while she was, answering some of the questions. And my wife told me the answer that this young lady answered, 2 of them. And I was like, first off, number one, how do you answer that to your future employer? Okay, that's number one. Like, you would, at least if you have half intelligence, you would lie on it.
What exactly were the questions?
Well, I'll say that. And the 2, she passed it. So here were the two questions. First one was, it's a 5 rated scale, okay? 1 being strongly agree, neutral, slightly disagree, strongly disagree. And one of the questions was, everything is going right in my life. And her answer was, strongly disagree.
Oh.
And 2, there are a lot of good things about me, and strongly disagree.
Wow.
Right. So the first thing is, how did she pass the second out?
You're a role model.
That's number 1. Number 2 is then you go back to that thing of a young lady having sex with a young student.
Right.
So again, if you you see nothing of value to yourself, and everything is going wrong in your life, and you got a young student giving you attention.
So to me, that's a failure on who decides on those tests.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hey.
Those 2 questions, if you answer strongly disagree, that should disqualify you from that job.
I feel like strongly disagree, strongly agree are probably not appropriate answers.
I'm always a strongly agree. I mean, I'm on the extreme scale of things, always. I don't think that should disqualify you necessarily, but I do think there's at least a sign of honesty, which is nice.
Which is good.
And so you go, okay, just being honest, that's cool. But I still don't want you in your
Exactly.
And it's not like this
if you
is
strongly
new.
agree,
When I was
then I may have thought differently.
I think I was a sophomore in I might have been a junior in high school. When I was in high school, it might have actually been my senior year. One of our sophomore students had a relationship with our history teacher, who was a man. And it was like,
Is it a guy?
It was a male teacher, a female student. But it was just like,
So
why?
was it Catholic?
I don't know, but he was married with children. And he's probably in prison at this point. But, it's just one of those things, like, as an adult, I don't see why that's even something that anybody would like.
It's
like
completely different being a guy than a girl.
But it's still the fact that there's a maturity level that you would think you would look for, but maybe not.
I will honestly tell you, as a dude, I would have been high-fiving everybody I knew. I really would have hoped I got a trophy of some sort.
Not hoped I
would
got a
pull it off.
And it goes back.
Being the
She
younger
was
male
really
with the
good
good-looking
looking.
teacher.
Oh my God.
We also had a really good-looking teacher in our high school, and if that would have happened, I would have been like.
Not only would I not have been traumatized, I would have been sweeping everybody down the hallways. Woo! It would have been great.
Yeah.
It's not the same for women, I don't think.
I will say this. If it was one of those things that it was a one-time thing, then that's not as traumatizing. But imagine an older female taking advantage of a younger man emotionally.
Oh, please do it. Oh my God, I would have been okay.
Well, I don't know.
I would have been okay.
We're pretty impressionable as humans at that age, and
Yeah, at 16, I felt like I could have handled it. 15, I could have handled it.
You may be, but not everyone is like that. And most people that happens to.
You're not going for the weakest of the herd. You're not going for the slowest zebra in the pack. If
It's not like they're the best looking people in the world either, though.
Some of the guys are really good looking. It's usually
some of those teachers, aren't that bad either, because they're
good looking.
20s, and you're like, what's? And again, it goes back to what is wrong with her mentally, because that's what it really comes down to. What's in her mental state of being, in the sense that she has some serious
whatever it is,
esteem issues. Really, is what it comes down to. Is somebody's giving her attention. She likes the attention, and she's addicted to that attention.
It's funny how we look differently at what the motivation is for a female versus a male.
I think that's exactly what the subject matter is right now with what we're talking about, because if you do the role reversal there, obviously I think every one of us here
Nobody
sees
says
it as
what's
a
wrong with that guy,
Sure.
what's mentally wrong with him. They're like, oh, he's going through a crisis.
No.
It's still a freaking mental issue.
He's preying on a young hot chick.
Yeah, now we look at him as a predator.
Yeah, we know he's preying on it. We know, as men, we know he's preying on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's looking for the weakest.
But women can be predators too.
Oh, yeah,
Don't
absolutely.
look at it that way.
But the difference is the willingness to be bait is the difference there. The difference is the willingness to be the bait.
Please be a predator.
Every guy is sitting here the whole idea of a cougar is actually a dude's like fantasy.
It's a
okay?
dream.
Yeah, it's
Oh
like when
my
you're in
God.
high school and college, you're sitting there like, wait a minute, there's hot 40-year-old women who want to have sex with me.
Who are
Thank
good
you.
looking?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Sweet.
Sign me up.
Who know what they're doing? This
Yeah.
is amazing.
You guys
Yeah.
are just
Teach
dirty
me the ways.
Yes, we're pigs. We are pigs. Absolutely.
And that's the difference between men and women. Just your reaction.
But also, I mean,
We
versus
are
that,
horrible
I don't,
people.
I don't think that any of these guys here would look to prey on a younger high school girl. Like, that's disgusting to us.
No.
Yeah, that is actually
absolutely.
repulsive.
Absolutely.
Right.
But man, getting hit on by an older woman anytime.
When
Bring it.
you're in high school and
Yeah.
college, you're wanting that. You're like,
As
if
a-
you
as
put
a
a
guy.
sign out that sat there and
As a
said,
guy.
"Hi, take advantage of me,"
Oh
it's
my
like,
God.
yeah,
It's like a Century 21. I'm just like,
they're putting out signs. Yeah.
Which is also interesting in the sense that at that age, women certainly emotionally mature faster. So yeah, that's also like, it's just all these weird angles.
Boys are walking hormones from
Yes.
Yeah.
about puberty till
Death.
yeah, pretty much.
Thank you, audience.
I was trying to come up with a number, and I was like, it's just going to keep going.
You know what? On that note,
Fix the Viagra.
I think that's where we stop this
Yeah.
section.
Yeah.
And we'll be right back. Hey, you can search for the Loft Party Podcast on iTunes Podcasts, Google Play Podcasts, and on our Good Times with Good People YouTube channel. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook, tweet us on Twitter, and if you like the content we provide, donate to us on Patreon. www.patreon.com/LoftPartyPodcast. You can find all of our links below. And now back to our regularly scheduled program. And we are back. And before we get too deep, let's play a quick party game. So, you walk into Walmart and you see a person that you hate. What do you do?
Oh.
A, wait a minute. You walk out. B, you secretly stalk them around the store. C, you walk up and say, hey. D, you smack them with a pool noodle. Or E, whatever's about to come out of you guys' mouth. Sean.
E, I buy him a bottle of Mueller.
Perfect answer.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
How do you even beat that?
I know. I was just gonna say, I don't know if you beat that.
Well, I'm like, how old are you that you would do any of these things?
Yeah, I mean,
I thought it was pretty funny when I saw it.
Yeah.
with me, it's I just
I don't-
nothing.
yeah.
I do nothing. I shop.
Yeah.
See, I mean, unless it's like a person that instills such a rage in me that I feel the need to
Assume
literally.
that it is.
Well, I
the
mean,
person
what
you
would
hate
they have had to
the
have done? Like somebody who.
It doesn't matter. Just imagine that you
You hate
absolutely.
them infinitely.
Yeah. That is your arch
I can
enemy.
think
I mean, it's Walmart, so it's probably the best place to start a fight, right?
Yeah.
Walmart is just built for a fight.
Yeah. I mean, I'm at Walmart. I might as well.
This
Yeah.
is your Lex Luthor. You hate
Apparently,
this
you
guy.
need to make sure that you're in the pool aisle.
Yeah.
Luckily, I would never shop at a Walmart, but if
Yeah, I
I
haven't
were
been to a
to,
Walmart
I'm
in
trying to
years.
imagine that.
And if you shop at Walmart, I'm not trying to put Walmart shoppers down. It's just I have no reason to be there.
Hey, attention Walmart shoppers. If you're out here podcast land, don't listen to these
I'm
people.
just gonna say there are some things that we get from Walmart.
Hey, exactly.
It's so far away from where I live, though. Like,
The only reason I ever went to a Walmart
No,
is
it's
because
not.
they
We go to
have
Roland Park.
insulin
downtown.
for $25.
Okay, we live.
even whenever I lived in Midtown.
When
Wait,
we lived
you-
downtown,
Walmart
that's the one we
has
went
insulin?
to. It's 10 minutes down the road.
Here's the weird thing about Walmart. So they have insulin for $25 because they made a deal with Novartis. Everywhere else is $80 plus.
Jeez.
They had it for $25, and my recently departed lovely dog Raleigh had diabetes, and so I had to give him shots every day.
Right.
And so I would go to Walmart and get
And get the insulin.
medicine, and it was literally a third of the price of anywhere else.
Right.
That's the only reason I ever. And if you look at Walmart shoppers, you understand why they would make a deal for insulin. Like, it's clear that they make a killing on it.
I do
But-
have to say, when we go in there,
I'm
it's
so
like,
glad.
It
I go
just
in
looks
and we
like
go
a
out.
diabetes factory. It just does.
So glad there's a disclaimer at the beginning of this
The
podcast.
views
We
and
just lost 2
opinions
sponsors.
But, Chris,
I would go say hi. Because
Of
I love
course you
nothing
would.
more. I love nothing more than going up to people I despise and saying hi.
You know, and that now what's funny is
That makes total sense.
that's actually my answer too.
Mine do.
I go walk right. Hey man, how you doing? What are you doing in here?
Still look as shitty as you are.
I don't think I would go out of my way to say hi.
No, but if I
they-
saw him and they saw
If they
me,
said something to me, I would totally be polite about it.
no, best revenge is living good. And I want you to know I'm all right.
I like
How
that
are you
too.
doing?
Well, you know, I get kind of flash mad, so it's probably not a good idea for me to
For you, probably.
start the conversation.
Probably
You do?
No, not really.
And we're about to see her get flash mad after the
Mario
podcast.
thinks I do, but I really don't.
Well,
Oh, besides the bottle of my
I'm
heart.
scooting away so that the lightning
Oh, yeah,
can
you
come
are
That's
through.
still the best answer.
I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, I just don't care enough about people that I hate.
Yeah,
to
I don't really waste my time on it.
To really just, I really don't even think.
Well, one, I don't hate anybody, but
Right.
if I did, I would walk right up and say hello.
I do.
I was gonna say, I hate all kinds of people, and I would go right up to
Hate is really strong. Like,
Yeah, I know.
like
It's strong with this one.
The hate
Dark
is
side
strong.
is very strong
The
with this
hate
one.
is strong with this one.
Hate is very strong.
Yeah, I'm Han Solo's kid.
Okay, Ben.
Ben Solo.
Yeah, man. Okay, so nobody's choosing to hit him with the pool noodle. I'll take it.
no, but that would
Wait,
be
it wouldn't do
freaking
any
hilarious.
damage.
Actually, that would be pretty
I'd
funny.
love to be
Just
there.
walk up
It
and
wouldn't do
just,
any damage, but it's off. I mean, it's awful funny.
just walk up and with somebody upside
I think it
the head.
depends on how hard you swing it.
Yeah,
I wouldn't do it, but I would like to see it be done.
Yeah.
There you go.
agree.
There you go.
Like
I
just be in a Walmart and see somebody go whoosh, and then just get a fight out of it and be like, that was the awesome experience.
I just
Yeah.
do not want to be that YouTube video.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to be in the YouTube video, but I certainly would like to see it happen.
Yeah.
That would be funny. Okay, with all that said, we'll be right back. Hey out there in podcast land, we would not be doing our duty if we didn't acknowledge the sponsors of the Loft Party Podcast, the Majestic Restaurant and Jazz Club, and the Majestic's Pendergast Club. The Majestic carries on Kansas City's tradition of great food and jazz. Let them show you why they are the classic Kansas City steakhouse experience. 931 Broadway, just 3 blocks from the Kansas City Convention Center. J. Rieger and Company, a Kansas City distillery. Whether whiskey, gin, or vodka, neat or on the rocks, J. Rieger, Kansas City, sipping good since 1887. C&P Construction, Kansas City's premier wood framers. 50 years of quality framing and craftsmanship. Just email david.cnpservice@gmail.com and start building something new today. And our friend and frequent guest, Lane Boland. Thank you all for all that you do. Time to rejoin the conversation. All right, and we are back, and here we go. Party politics. So, the question today is, with all the scandals, do we think Trump's going to last all 4 years? So, off camera, off mic, we were talking. So I want Sean to jump in with the thoughts that you were just having.
Okay. So, will Trump last 4 years? Yes, I think he will last the 4. The other question is, will he run for a second term? That's what I think the real answer is going to be. Is he going to sit there and say, no, I can't handle it anymore, I'm out? Or will he run for the second if he thinks he's got an in? And the reason why I think he's fine for 4 and possibly will go for a second is only based on kind of what we were talking about is like Democratic Party. The biggest problem for the biggest benefit for Trump is the Democrat Party can't get their stuff together. Okay, so the scandals. Let's take the scandals. Let's take the Russian scandal. The problem is when you take a look at the polls over the last month or two, the American people as a whole, and I'm talking about the independents mixing with the Republicans, are kind of over it. They're kind of done with it. The The Russian scandal is to the Democratic Party what the Benghazi scandal was to the Democratic Party, or to the Republican Party.
Yeah.
Meaning the Republicans went after Benghazi. There was some there, but the problem is you went after so many other things that really didn't matter that the overarch was once you got something, the American people were done with it.
We're done with it.
So the same thing with the Russian scandal is every single time somebody brings up something, there's really no there. And then once you think you might have something with Donald Trump Jr., you look at right now where the American public is as a whole, they're more worried about their jobs, their income, healthcare, this and that you take a look at CNN's ratings over the last 2 months, they're getting nailed on it. And they're now realizing they have to retool their programming to get away from some of the Russian stuff because people are just done with it. The average person is just done with the Russian stuff.
Okay, let me throw something in. First off, MSNBC is going through the roof.
They are going through the roof, but
And
that's
they,
with their people, though.
No. Yeah. Because they did not have any ratings at all.
Right, true.
And now they're beating Fox on a regular basis. Particularly the Rachel Maddow show is through the roof.
Right.
And I do not think
Which is actually a good show.
I love her show. I think she's phenomenal. I think she's great. And
I think she does a good job.
To be perfectly honest,
presenting facts.
I do too. And I also like a lot of Fox shows. I think they're both interesting. I like both sides of the argument. They're both interesting. But I think she's the best on TV. I think she's clearly the smartest. But beyond that, I don't think anybody's tired of this. Because of the spike in ratings that you've seen on cable news networks, if you actually watch the ratings from where they used to be to where they are now, they are through the roof. And one of the most watched days ever was on the Donald Trump Jr. Russia kind of stuff. People were glued in that. It actually beat the OJ thing, which was, I was glued to watching OJ. I mean, I'm a huge OJ fan, as everybody knows. But I mean, I love him to death, and I watched it wall to wall. It got a fraction of the ratings as the Donald Trump Jr. stuff did. Yeah. And I think they're killing it. And the Democrats, as divided as they are, and you can say they're not doing anything, they're a minority party right now. They don't have the House, and they don't have the Senate.
Right.
It's the Republicans that are screwed because they're the ones who have the House, the Senate, and the presidency, and can't pass jack shit.
Absolutely. Well,
and they are screwed. They are screwed.
So to your point is, the problem is the majority. The reason why MSN is doing well, Fox isn't. Okay.
MSNBC?
So MSN is doing well, but Fox isn't.
MSNBC. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So the thing is you're servicing a group of people who really like hearing that.
But why
and I do agree with you.
Why did they like it all of a sudden?
Well, because it's feeding to the hate of that one person. Because again, think about it like this: is throughout the how can I put this? Throughout the Obama administration, your guys in office, your guys doing great. No, hold on. What I'm trying to explain to you is CNN. CNN is where a lot of average, middle of the road people are going to go.
In terms of actual ratings, Fox hasn't gone down. They've stayed relatively consistent.
But they're losing in their prime spots of the 8 o'clock hour or the 7 o'clock hour.
What they've done is they're
losing their main spots.
They've stayed relatively consistent in terms of their ratings. MSNBC has just shown remarkable gains in their ratings, and CNN is actually doing better than they were before.
But they've lost quite a bit. From the beginning of the year.
They're actually higher. They're up from where they were because more people are watching news now than used to because it's just a circus.
Right.
More people are watching. They're still in third place, but they've gained tremendously.
But again, the reason why I don't think, how can I put this? The best thing I can give you is that Rasmussen did a poll, and it came out about a month ago. And the lady who went out and talked about it, this is a lady who is a Barack Obama supporter, she's a Democrat, but she went out and talked, and she said that if the elections were held today, Donald Trump would win.
Sure.
And it comes down to, everybody started arguing that. And she goes, what you have to understand is the difference between a voter, meaning Rasmussen, her talking, is that they first qualify the person as a likely voter, and what she says is they look at, did you vote in the last election? Did you vote under Obama when he was running his first term? Those are all going to say, will you be likely to vote again?
Right.
So you're talking about ratings spiking under MSN, but again, go back to the riots that happened in Oregon, where all of a sudden they found out that half the people who were writing didn't even vote. So the problem is, your ratings are spiking, but how many of those people are actually going to actually turn that into a vote?
This is the Democratic problem. They always count on the young vote.
Right.
They always think it's going to turn out.
Right.
It never does because young people are too stupid to know even how to register to vote.
Right.
And so they don't. And so this is why they lose. And beyond that, people always do these national polls.
Oh yeah.
As if a national poll means anything.
No,
a
it
national
doesn't.
poll means nothing.
No.
The way that you win a presidency is exactly
State
how
by state.
Trump won a presidency.
Absolutely.
You go,
State
just
by
like
state.
you said, state by state. So how many times did Hillary go to Pennsylvania?
She went what, like 2 or 3?
Zero.
I thought no. I know she went
Zero.
0 to Wisconsin, but didn't she go
Zero.
towards the end of Wisconsin?
0 to Wisconsin, 0 to Pennsylvania.
Oh, Pennsylvania was 0 to.
Didn't
Okay.
go to either one, despite Bill Clinton,
Yeah.
who's the absolute fucking master of winning a campaign.
Absolutely, I
saying,
don't agree with that.
you
I
need to
mean,
get
agree
your
with
ass
that.
out to these counties because these are the counties that you need to target. She didn't go because her campaign said don't go. These are already locked up.
Right.
And
Based
so-
off of the previous administration.
And Chuck Schumer just came out and said, listen, we didn't lose the election. Hillary lost the election.
Yes,
by not
absolutely.
doing this.
Right.
And for Chuck Schumer, who's one of her good friends, in theory,
Right.
and their
Right.
state senators, former state senators from New York,
Right.
he still is clearly in the Senate, but she was in the Senate from New York, to come out and throw her under the bus like that is humongous.
I think he knows that she's done with, so it doesn't matter anymore.
Everybody, I think, in this one
Yeah.
goes, the Clinton era is over.
So it's easy to just dump that off and be like, okay, let's get rid of it, done with it. Kind of a thing.
That's how brutal this game is.
Oh, absolutely.
To have your friend come out and go, you're done.
But to your
is
point, where you're sitting there
insane.
saying though that the Republicans can't pass anything with the House, the Senate, and the presidency. Keep in mind, Barack Obama's first term, they had the House, the Senate, and the presidency a veto-proof as well, and they couldn't even get the health care passed for about 2 years. So they're in the
veto
same.
proof because of the filibuster rule, and so
No, they had over 60.
no, I understand
Right.
that, but there's also the filibuster rule, which killed
Right.
it on a couple of different occasions, and they did pass healthcare.
Right.
And so I
After
would
about
say,
2.5 years, yeah.
but he still got it.
But they also took that time to actually write. I mean, it's a dense, convoluted bill. But
Oh no, they
took the time to write
had
something.
the bill before.
I-
It was already written out.
I'm not a
because they didn't write it. The insurance companies wrote it.
I think my issue
Exactly.
my issue
Yeah.
with the Republican Party right now is so you've had 8 years to write
Seven,
something.
yeah.
To
Right.
write something.
Right.
And you just started writing it when he got elected.
No, the problem was
Like,
they've
that's
had
insane.
multiple. The problem was that, and
But
whatever
they-
he said
but
is
they have
that
all
they
been
should have
wrong.
passed the one that they tried to pass earlier.
Exactly.
That's the one they should
It's
have
changed.
passed.
When
They changed
they
it.
had the votes,
Yeah.
they had different members in there. So it would have passed had they tried this 3 years ago, 4
Right.
years ago. It would have absolutely passed. Now they have different members in
Right.
there, and what you're finding in the Republican Party is you have people who say this doesn't go far enough, and you have another handful of people who say
This goes too far.
So people forget. So take Dennis Moore as a classic example. Kansas representative, wasn't he? He was in the House.
I think so,
believe.
yeah.
Yes.
Forever. In order to maintain your seat in the House as a Democrat from Kansas, you need to be pretty fucking middle of the road. Sorry.
Yeah.
You need to be pretty middle of the road.
Yeah.
Let me rephrase
No,
so you can
absolutely.
edit that out.
No,
But-
that's it.
But
Fucking is
I
it.
mean, that's what you have to
Because
be.
fucking is in.
You got to be middle of the road. So he wasn't a true Democrat necessarily. He was a guy who I think represented,
Right.
honestly,
His people.
the vast majority of people.
Right.
You had to compromise.
Yeah.
And you're finding now that these people from the swing states who got elected are going,
They don't wanna compromise.
If I vote for this, I'm screwed because I'm going to lose a lot of constituents
Right.
who are going to have their health care dropped. But more than that, it's going to be interesting to see what the insurance companies do, because they are pulling out of
absolutely.
every state.
Yes, absolutely.
And so,
because they can't keep up.
in a weird way, and I hate to give Trump any credit in the world,
Right.
he was not wrong when he says it's going to die on its own.
Well,
They
it
will
is.
pull out, and you were right when you said the insurance companies wrote the bill. They did,
Yeah.
thinking that everybody has to sign up now, so we're going to make a killing.
Absolutely.
And what's happening now is it's unaffordable.
But that's
Simply
that's
unaffordable.
it's unaffordable. But that's the thing of okay. Do you want to replace a bill you know is going to die that hasn't died yet, and put in a crappy bill that will die and then you'll be blamed for it, or do you let one that's crappy fall off and let the Democrats take the blame for it?
So it's an infinite question, but to Tomorrow's point, you had 7 years to come up with a better choice.
And-
So,
and
Well,
you keep changing
technically
it. There's no
8
better
at this
we
point.
have talked about this forever. It's so easy to make a good healthcare bill. It's not hard.
Right.
You have to include pre-existing conditions. That's a mandatory.
Yeah.
And Beyond that, you need to do tort reform.
True.
So that
Absolutely.
punitive damages do not, these enormous
Absolutely.
punitive damages that make you go through round and round and
Absolutely.
round of doctor visits and all this bullshit, that needs to stop.
Right.
And then more than that, you also need to be able to sell across state lines.
Absolutely. That's
so
the biggest
if you
thing.
did those three
Yes.
things,
Yes.
everybody on earth
I fully
should
agree with you.
agree with that.
I fully agree with you.
I don't understand the problem is. And if they did those three things,
Right.
they would win.
Right.
That's you wanna fix Obamacare?
Right.
And it's not even Obamacare, honestly, it's affordable health care, which
Right.
I do believe is a right. Fix those three things.
I again, getting back to...
Wait, before we go on, because some of this needs to be addressed next week in the podcast we're going to do next week.
Fair enough.
And I won't
Sorry.
give away to the audience what it is just yet. But we've got so many things on the list here for
I'm sorry.
the issues that
Me too.
issues that the Republicans are having now. One is spicy quits.
Oh, spicy. This is on you.
Spicy quit. I knew this was gonna happen. I didn't know how long it was gonna take for him to get fed up with this.
Well, the writing's been on the wall forever.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I don't really have too much of an opinion on this part. It's pretty cut and dry. Sean Spicer quit. Like, he, on a constant basis, was told to go out there and say certain things, and then, like, 2 seconds later... 2 seconds later...
Right.
A tweet will come
was
out.
undermined.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
he was thrown under the bus just all the time. And
Time after time after
I'd be
time.
like, if I were him, I'd
Do you remember the press conference where literally in the middle of it, he got handed a note
Yeah.
where he had to backtrack and say the exact opposite of what he'd been saying for the
Oh,
last 30
it was
minutes?
like a
Like,
sitcom.
oh my God.
It was like he was living a Seinfeld episode or something.
Yeah,
Like, you cannot do that
Oh
to
my
people.
goodness.
You just can't do it. It's just
Yeah.
ridiculous.
So, okay. So, did anybody see the story that I'm talking about this week that Trump? It was Trump's tweet because the special counsel is going to be looking into Trump family finance.
Greatest tweet
This
of
is-
all time.
This is actually what I wanted to talk about.
Greatest tweet of all
I
time.
missed that one.
This
Oh,
is
my
amazing.
goodness.
This is stunning.
So,
Okay,
Ben
so
seemed ready.
what I think is really cool about this whole situation, and why I think that it is possible that Donald Trump will not last 4 years,
I don't think he will either.
is because Robert Mueller has put together an incredible team of people. I'm talking about people who toppled Enron, people who are experts in tracking the money in organized crime. I mean,
Yep.
he's got a team that is perfect and beautiful for this situation. And I think that they are going to come across enough damage and enough incriminating financial evidence.
I think they already have.
Yeah, but what I think they're doing is I think
think
they're
they're
taking their
building
time
a
to
rock solid
compile
case.
so much of it.
I don't think that they're trying to compile so much of it. I think they're trying to make it where it's ironclad.
It's
Yeah,
bulletproof.
it's just bulletproof.
Like they're, you know,
I
I mean,
This evidence
I
is
think
going to
that
be
they have
like
enough
a
already.
very sharp knife slitting across both the jugulars. I'm talking like cutting the head off the Hydra evidence.
A guy like Robert Mueller does not come back out of retirement to take this job unless he knows he's going to win.
Yeah.
He's not going to take it unless he knows he's going to win, and the evidence is there. And while I'm not a Comey fan, I think what he did was wrong. I think releasing private notes and stuff like that is wrong, especially the way he did it. I'm not a huge fan of that. But it lets you know how much hatred there is for Trump in that world and how
Well,
much evidence they probably have.
I don't
against
think
him.
it's necessarily
And Comey did it.
hatred, or not only hatred. I think that Trump has such a history of bad mouthing and finding dirt and
Yeah.
treating people so horribly that you tend to sink to his level.
But look what he did to Jeff Sessions. I mean, this is the one guy
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
supported him from the start.
I know.
And then he takes him
But
and
he
throws him under
doesn't
the
know
bus.
how to be loyal to anybody other than his immediate family.
But he
Exactly.
expects
To himself.
a pledge of loyalty from you,
Exactly.
which is hilarious.
Exactly my point.
I
Sean.
think I think what he did to Jeff Sessions is, you know, unconscionable. I think that was just horrible. I think that just
Well, I'm not so
speaks-
mad that he did it to Jeff Sessions.
Well,
No, but I don't think, whether you like Sessions or not,
to
that
the
was
loyalty,
wrong.
yeah, to somebody who's been the guy who's been backing you the whole entire time.
Yeah.
And really, what it comes down to is because Sessions was a little. I think Sessions had a little bit more integrity of knowing that he had to recuse himself from the whole Russian thing.
Right.
And that was one of the things that I think pissed Trump off to where it's like, okay, I'm done with you. And he's looking for an out to get rid of this dude, you know, and undermine him at any point of the scale. And again, that really puts a bad taste in my mouth. But again, my problem with the whole Trump not lasting is we keep on having this conversation where like Comey's going to come out and you have these people run out saying we're going to impeach Trump right after this trial. And again, there ends up being no real there.
Well,
and again, it's one moment. No, there really isn't a good solid one to where you're like, that's the smoking gun.
There is.
So
But
my
we don't
problem though
know-
is if Mueller's really good and really smart, he holds on and he keeps that information silent. And he doesn't let small things come out to where it's easy to defend that and it's easy to pick it apart so that when it all comes out, everybody's like, this is just old news. Because again, this goes back to the whole like, this is the Democratic's version of Benghazi, what they're calling
Well, and all this,
and
we
it's
don't
whether the
know.
American people have the stomach to continue on with
They
it.
had
Well,
to
and we
admit
don't know-
today to 4 meetings with the Russians that
Right.
they had not previously disclosed. 4 meetings.
Right.
And I don't care if you say nothing came out of it or something did or whatever. You
They were
never
supposed to
said
disclose
it
it.
ever. In order to get a White House security clearance, you have to disclose it.
Everything, right.
I mean, people will go to jail for this.
Right.
Will Trump in jail? I have no idea.
But you're saying
But
there's no
somebody will.
there, but we don't know what was said
But there was-
under
Democratic-
closed sessions.
Right. But again, going back to the whole Benghazi thing was there was plenty of there. But again, is by the time it all came out, it was old news, and the Democrats said it's old news, and all of them said it's old news, and the American people were tired of it. And I get it. It's
if we can
if you keep
actually
on
talk about this Benghazi
I don't
thing.
buy that as a crime.
What? Oh, wait, hold on one second. Hold on before we go there, because actually something else that I actually have on the list.
I'm not saying whether it's a crime or not a crime. What I'm sitting there saying is, what's the Americans' perception of? Are they beyond it? Have they moved past it? That's what I'm trying to get at. The average voter, the average person. I'm not talking about Democrats or Republicans because that's the problem. Is we're talking about Democrats, Republicans. I'm talking about the guy who's in the middle of the road who just is trying to make a paycheck and trying to take it home to his family and take care of his family. Does he care about that?
Yes.
No, he doesn't.
Yes.
He doesn't. No.
I do believe that.
Here's the problem is I've listened to 2 things on NPR where guys are calling in and sitting there saying, I'm tired of this crap. Let's start talking about the economy. And these guys are going into it crying, like screaming and crying at these guys because they're hurting. And the people who are calling in and screaming about this and that on the Russian thing, they're talking about politics. Okay, they're not talking about their pocketbook.
This is
that's what
borderline
motivates
treason.
people.
This is treasonous. That will
Democrats
keep-
have said the same thing, or Republicans said the same thing about Benghazi, though.
Yeah, except they investigated her like 9 times.
She spent 10
I read
hours or more testifying on
and in
it.
a
So it's kinda like-
Republican-controlled Congress and
True.
still couldn't get shit done.
Right, but that's what I'm saying is again, you're talking about the same thing with the whole, every time they go out with Comey, the problem was every time Comey came out and said something, it was like, okay, we already knew that, that's nothing new, okay, what's next?
No, actually,
and
Comey
that's the problem.
Comey killed himself by saying, "Hey, I called up my college buddy and had him release a bunch of secret memos that I was keeping track of,"
Right.
and that's why he's a moron.
Right.
So that was stupid, and that was an absolute violation of protocol, and this is why he defeated himself.
Well, he did.
What I do think
Multiple
will happen,
times, though.
I do not believe that Trump will last 4 years. I think there's a lot more here than meets the eye, and I think he's going to go down in horrible flames. I'm going to just applaud and cheer the day that it happens. It's gonna be-
I could care less if he goes out or not.
Okay, so
It's just- I just
here's
don't
the
see
question. Here's the question. Here's the next question. So, or next thing, 'cause I think it ties right in, is so since he's been if you think about it, he's only been in office 6 months, but we've had a barrage, and maybe they've all been. I don't even want to say small scandals, because technically any one of these little things would have been a major scandal in somebody else's presidency. But he's had so many of them that they're feeling small because they're happening so quickly. But here's one that got me, is that Trump's having his lawyers look into
If he
what
can pardon
the
himself.
president's pardon powers
Right,
are.
right.
And,
Well,
He cannot pardon himself.
No.
Didn't Clinton do the same thing, only not tweet about it?
No, he did not. First off, he was not impeached at any point. He was technically,
Right,
but got off.
He wasn't
of it.
removed.
The only other one was Andrew Johnson.
Right.
The only other one who was threatened with impeachment was Nixon. Clearly.
Right.
And you
We're
absolutely
not talking about impeachment, though. We're talking about a criminal act that he gets.
doesn't matter.
Yeah, it does. They're two different things.
No, actually they're not. The president can forgive,
Yes, you
pardon
can.
anybody.
Yes, they are
The
different.
question is whether you can pardon
What he's
yourself.
talking about
Right.
here, though,
Right.
is something that happened before he was president.
Doesn't
That
matter.
Yes, it does.
No,
Here's
it
another
doesn't.
really
No, because
It
presidents
doesn't.
pardon people who
Pardon people all
have
the
crimes
time.
that happened before they were
Yeah,
president.
so
as well.
yes, he could very well pardon himself.
No, yeah,
No,
you
he
can't.
cannot pardon himself.
you
I
can't
want
pardon
you to.
yourself.
I want you to bring next week where it says that he cannot do that.
will
Okay,
absolutely do
he
that.
can't pardon himself,
Can't do
but
that.
the person who replaces him, i.e. Pence,
Like a Gerald Ford.
Could.
can pardon him.
Yes.
Right.
And that's what will happen.
That's exactly what will
thing.
happen.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Well, here's
If
another-
Trump's removed from office, Pence gets in office.
Yeah.
Pence pardons him.
Right.
That's what'll happen.
That's
Trump
the way it
pardons
comes out.
all of his kids and all
Right.
in the Kushner.
Right.
and all
Yeah.
the-
Trump can
Yeah.
pardon everybody in his administration.
But
Then
you
he
can't
gets
pardon
the
yourself.
boot,
Then
and then
Pence
Pence
pardons
pardons
Trump.
Another
Yeah.
thing I'm wondering is, whenever you pardon somebody of a crime, that is actually they are not going to be penalized in the judicial system, but it is actually an admission of guilt. So can they have civil?
It's not an admission to guilt. You just
No.
are free from criminal prosecution.
Right.
So it's not an admission to guilt.
Really?
What you
Yeah.
can do is still be civilly sued.
Yeah.
And there is a long-standing tradition that you cannot sue the government
Right.
necessarily. Like you can't.
What
can't
if they're
do
no
that.
longer in the
So-
government?
So you could.
No, you can't sue for like.
For when
you-
they were in
you-
office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you do bring up an interesting point, which is, can you sue for something that happens before you were in office during the course of an election? That would be an interesting case.
Yeah. I mean, this is all really uncharted territory that
Well,
we've just not seen anything like this in ever in American history, and so this is now, here's what's scary and hilarious at the same time to me. So whether you like our current president or you hate our current president, everything that's happening around his presidency, this is in the history books. They're gonna have to talk about. They're gonna have to talk about
I
this
think
stuff.
that they
for-
won't talk about it.
I don't know. This is unprecedented stuff in American history.
I
This
think
is
it may
big.
not make like the high school, that kind of history. I think where it will make it is into the law schools.
If he-
and into-
Right.
into
I
Yeah.
agree
your
with
political
that.
science
Yeah.
classes,
Yeah.
colleges.
Yeah.
It'll totally make it.
Also, this,
Absolutely.
if he actually gets impeached, it would definitely make the history books. I mean, my
No,
God, I can tell you about the
it
Andrew
will-
Johnson case 1,000%. This is 1865.
It will,
And
but
I
that's
can
what I'm
tell you
saying is
about that.
it'll make it to a higher level. The problem is, again, with family who works in the education system, American history as it's taught isn't taught like hardly at all. They'll teach you about world history and stuff like that. The problem though is if you ask these kids on American history stuff, half of them can't tell you who bombed Pearl Harbor.
Well, the
They're like,
stupidity of American kids in the misfunction of the school system. is
Absolutely,
one
but
thing.
what I'm
we can
saying
talk
is
about that
you're-
ad
you're-
nauseum.
right.
But I do think
You're right, you will.
I do think there's enough people who know that Andrew Johnson was impeached following.
Oh, I
Lincoln.
guarantee there's a lot of them that don't.
I guarantee there's a lot that don't too. I'm
Yeah.
saying the ones that actually give a shit will
Okay.
know, and it does make the history books.
Oh.
And actually, I can tell you the guy who actually saved his ass was a Kansas senator named Edmund Ross,
Right.
who cast the vote to not do it.
Yeah.
So this is where history does come into play. It's still taught. There's still books written about it.
Yeah.
And in this day and age, where information is so freely available, I think you don't even have to teach it anymore. I think it's it's just out there.
Right.
So if you want to know about
that's-
it, look it up.
That's to my point. Is what I'm saying is it will make the history books. It will be taught. It will be taught political science. It will be taught law school. It will be taught in those kind of realms.
Yeah. Well, I think the only way this gets, like you say, down to high school is if he's actually impeached.
He has to be impeached.
But again, for that to get to high school level, I think that will be in a current events class. But 10 years from now, I don't think it'll be taught in a school.
You don't think that Clinton's impeachment is taught
No,
at right
absolutely,
now at
I
all?
guarantee you it's not. Guarantee.
Not at all.
I will put money on.
Well, you know what? I
can
don't
tell you
think
from.
Clinton's is only because he wasn't removed from office.
I can tell you from people that I know who actually work in the education system that there is so much of American history that is not even taught at all.
Okay, let's
No,
barely get
yeah,
into
it's
Vietnam
not.
War. Let's
It's-
take Mario's
It's
point.
American. It's
Yeah, we
foundation of
can
the country.
curses
and
anymore, so.
a little bit of that, and that's it.
Well, wait. Let's take
Like, I
Mario's
hate to
point
say that.
and assume that he actually was kicked out of office. 'Cause
Right.
Most Americans have the incredibly wrong impression that Nixon was kicked out of office.
Mhm.
He wasn't. He
No,
was
he
started
resigned.
with
He resigned
impeachment
and
and he
yeah.
resigned.
Right.
So no, the only other ones were
He got on a helicopter
Right.
and flew away.
Yeah, no, he did his stupid
Yeah,
ass
yeah,
way
yeah,
peace
yeah.
sign or whatever the hell they did and just took off.
Yeah.
But if he's actually kicked out of office, if he is booted from office,
Yeah.
that will absolutely
Well, that has
make
to.
every
me.
history book in the world.
That has
the
to-
first
to me,
American
that has to go
president
in
to be forcibly removed from office.
Yes and no.
Absolutely would.
No, for your high school and that kind of stuff, no. I mean, I hate to disagree with that point, in the sense of that's how bad the education on history is being taught. That's what I guess I'm getting at. Is I do think it will make history books. I think it'll be definitely taught on a higher level, but on that level and younger, it will make current event classes for maybe the next 5, 6, 7 years.
The first American president to ever be forcibly removed from office. You
Most of
don't
these
think
kids
that
don't
makes
know.
the history
Most of these kids don't know about September 11th.
book? Oh,
That-
Well, that's because
Yes,
well,
most of those
that's
kids. If
because
you
my
talk to those,
daughter was a year old.
but that's what I'm talking about. We're talking about 16 years
This is
later.
an enormous event.
Yeah, exactly. That changed America in the sense that we went to 3 wars.
Whenever I
And
was
it's
in high
hardly
school.
even being taught.
That's like not knowing about D-Day
Yep.
in my mind. I'm
Exactly.
Like,
Whenever I was in high
Exactly.
school, we
Well,
barely
and
made it
to
to the
say,
Cold
and I
War.
will say this. I will say this before I ask the last question of this segment. That's scary because I do think there's a lot of kids that don't really know about D-Day because it's brushed past so quickly.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it may be like one question on the test, but you didn't spend but 3 paragraphs on it in the book.
D-Day?
Yeah, and that's
Are you
that's
kidding me?
That's
No,
what's scary.
I'm
That's what's scary.
I'm also talking about, again, like I said, Pearl Harbor is, you ask these kids, they can't tell you that it was the Japanese that bombed. Half of them will think that it was the Germans, and they don't even know that it led into World War II. That got us
John
into-
Belushi did famously say the
Well,
Germans
yeah.
He did about Pearl Harbor. Exactly. But that's to the point of what level of education these kids are getting about American history or history in general
Because
is
they don't
extremely
teach.
lacking.
They teach to test. They don't
They
teach.
teach to test, but again, it's not a requirement in many school systems to take American history. So again, going back to your point,
Not
is
anymore, it's
no,
not.
Are you kidding me?
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
How
You are
is that
not
a
required.
thing?
Yeah.
We used to
When I was
have
in-
to take American Lit, and we don't have to do that anymore either.
Well,
Or
now,
English Lit.
here's something I
What
learned.
schools are
Wait, here's something I
schools?
learned. Was it 2 years ago? They don't teach you how to write cursive anymore.
Oh no, they stopped doing that because
Like
I don't
complete,
get it.
like,
Yeah.
like.
We inadequate.
But
Yeah.
I just like past your signature. They don't even teach
They
you how
don't
to
even
write.
teach that.
I'm completely okay
Like,
with
that's
that.
so
In this
ridiculous.
world, you should be typing.
Okay,
You
wait.
should be-
Okay, I gotta ask the last
Okay,
question.
go
I gotta ask the last question because we are over time. In this
Edit it out.
question, okay, and this question actually comes from one of our panelists who is normally here but not here today. I'm not going to read his whole statement, but I do think the at least first part of what he had to say was a good question.
Oh God, I hope this is not the one I think it is.
Is exactly what you think it is. And so all of this, is this really what's good for our country?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Such a quick yes from both of you. Sean?
I So here, my personal views, I could care less if he gets booted out or stays in. My only concern though is if there's not enough there, if there isn't a good cogent argument there, the people on the right are gonna just absolutely go nuts. And then the problem's gonna be is where does that put us as a country? Okay, so I don't know. I really don't know if that's what's good for the country or not good for the country. I really don't.
I think in that sense, it's actually the opposite reason why the question was asked. I mean, the question was asked because this person feels as though removing Trump from office isn't good because Trump's fine for America.
Well, but he doesn't agree with everything. But the thing is,
I mean, I can read his whole statement.
No, I know the person. I know where we're going.
But it's more to do with they believe that
He wasn't given a fair shake.
right.
Yeah.
That the media and liberals and everybody
But that's what I'm
else
talking
after
about is
him.
that part is going to feel like their guy got in office. You did everything from the very beginning. Not to say that those people also didn't give the other guy a fair shake and tried to do everything to get rid of that guy, right?
Right.
Which that wasn't good either.
Right.
But that's what I'm saying is the faction of that part and that part that will just really create a certain amount of disdain. Okay.
Listen, I'm gonna tell you that no matter what, I don't really care. My parents will never not vote Republican. They don't honestly give a shit what happens to Trump or not. They'll never believe that anything really happened. I understand your point.
Right.
What I am saying is that what you need to affect is the 10% that are always the swing vote in every election. There's always, it's basically 40-40, and then there's a 10%, well, 45-45,
Well,
and there's a 10% swing vote that make up the difference in which way elections go. This is who you're playing to right now.
Right.
This is the audience.
Right.
And even amongst just the general public, he's at a 36% approval rate.
Oh, yeah.
That includes the 40+% of the country who are Republicans.
Right.
And people like me would say, well, I vote Republican sometimes. And I
Right.
would not vote for him again because I think he's a freaking moron.
Right.
And beyond that, I think he's completely guilty of something we don't know anything about yet. And the only reason I think he's guilty and won't last is the way that they're handling it.
Right.
And he's doing himself more harm than good by the way he's handling it.
Right.
If he came out and said, listen, for a year, they've been talking about Russia.
Right.
You know all the, in my mind, I'm like, oh God, when did I meet with Russians? I should remember probably every one of them. And if nothing ever came of it,
Right.
I'm going to tell you right now, these are the 4 times I met with the Russians, as Jared Kushner said today, when he was testifying behind closed doors because he's a chicken shit. You know, I'm like, no, you know every single time you met with them, if there was any even appearance of impropriety, you would have said, nope, met with them 4 times.
Claire
Here we
McCaskill
go.
made that same mistake though, blasting the Trump Center, saying you should remember when you met with Russians. And she said, I never met with Russians. And somebody came back and said, oh, actually, no, you met with Russians.
I'm not arguing that.
I know, I'm just sitting there saying,
mistake
you
makes
guys-
what they're doing
Yeah,
right.
I know.
What I'm saying is
I know.
that you know at this
Right.
point it is a heightened situation.
Right.
It is the only story people are talking about, and you remember everything about all of your meetings and get ahead of the story for one time.
For one time.
Get ahead of it.
Absolutely. So here's though to that person who sits right there. Okay, that person who sits right there is going to come back to you and sit there and say, well, you keep saying that he needs to remember it, but the Democrats can't even remember it every time that they've met with the Russians and they've met with the Russians.
And what I'm going to say is, I don't care about the Democrats.
I know, but that's-
I'm asking you.
I know. I'm just saying that's where
If
that's
you
at.
were a member of
That's
the
what it's at.
presidential cabinet, or even an advisor, son-in-law,
You should.
whatever the
You should
fuck
remember.
you are,
Absolutely.
you definitely remember. At this point, a year later, you have checked your day planner, your little Stephen Cuddy day planner, Google Calendar, and remembered the times you met with the Russians.
I love that. I love
You
that.
know,
You know, it is
but
what
I
it is.
also think that if he would just stop talking for a couple months,
He does it to himself.
people would forget.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect example, tweet today. Drain the swamp should be changed to drain the sewer. It's actually much worse than anyone ever thought, and it begins with the fake news.
So here's what's awesome.
What the hell?
He had a chance to go and talk to the New York Times about trying to pass a health care bill, which actually is reasonably important and is truly going to affect the future of this country.
Right.
If it passes or doesn't pass. And he decides to start talking about Russia for no reason.
Right.
You know, he hates the New York Times. And for some reason, he goes running to them, asks for an interview, and then talks about Russia the whole time. And then throws his attorney general in the bus, and then says, "Oh no, next day I still love him." I'm like, no,
it's a constant thing.
Yeah.
I mean, he's
You're
talking about how
jackass.
horrible Republicans are, that they campaigned on repeal and replace. Like, he didn't campaign on it too.
Well, the president
know?
does not make laws. So if you know, the way the country works is bills originate in the House, then they go to the Senate, then they come up with a compromise bill.
I get that,
they vote,
but he
and
acts like it
they all
wasn't
sign
also
it.
his idea.
It's why I have a very hard time with the term Obamacare, which I've said Obamacare many times, but to be perfectly honest, is a democratic health care plan that Obama had no business being involved in. He just signed off on it, and yes, he had a lot of ideas about it, but the president can't actually do anything.
No, he doesn't actually make any
He
laws.
enforces laws. He doesn't.
That's
make
it.
Okay.
He can say yes or no on them,
Yep.
and that's all.
That's it.
On that note, I think this is the best place to put a pin in this segment. And with that, we'll be right back.
Hey, you having a good time? Let me introduce you to a couple of my media brothers. First, www.americathemixtape.com, a cipher on American politics, society, and culture. And where'd I get that mixtape? Of course, www.cornerbodega.us, purveyors of urban culture. Come on, let's get back to the party.
And we are back. And before we get out of here, let's talk about today's sugar, honey, iced tea. For those, of course, that don't know, these are things that I or a member of the group have found that are really cool, aka the shit. Because we like to try to end on a higher note than whatever the party politics are. And today's sugar, honey, iced tea is taking care of your business. So over the weekend, here in Kansas City, where we record this podcast, it was hot than a mug, as they say. And the anonymous female was not feeling that awesome. So on top of the anonymous female not feeling that good, and the heat index being 115, it was so ridiculous.
It's the only time he sits still.
We were in the house, so while in the house, I did something that I had been needing to do for a long time. So out there in podcast land, if you notice, if you go to any of our pages, they have all been converted to the Good Times with Good People Company branded pages. So that is Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Tumblr, anywhere that you'd go and look for us. It's all been converted to the Good Times with Good People Company presents. So, at the end of the day, where I was multiply frustrated because my computer was doing things that I can't stand, and websites aren't necessarily always intuitive. I did get a tremendous rush of satisfaction because I took care of business. And it kind of felt like the shit. So, if you out there have things that you've been sitting on, waiting to do, know you need to do, but you haven't found the time, quote unquote, find the time, because I'm going to dare to say that taking care of your business is the shit. And with that, I'm going to end this podcast in the way I end all podcasts, and that is with the toast that started it all for me, and that is to good times with good people.